Hello, hello, hello. Welcome on in Fantasy Life right here, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. So excited to have you here with us today. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam, Ronis with you for the next couple hours, getting you ready as we have been all week for that NFL draft. Just another day closer, Adam. I'm so excited. I love the drama, all the rumors going around. I'm ready for Thursday night. How you doing?
Oh, I think we all are. We know we go through this every single year, and as we get closer, the rumors pick up, the trades, everything that is going to happen, and most of it doesn't, but it's just part of leading up to the draft, and definitely excited for the draft to finally kick off so we can get past all this.
It's such a tough time for me too, because you know me. I'm the optimistic one out of our duo here, and I believe a lot of things that are said to me. So I get all the rumors. I'm like, the Broncos are trading up. Everything that I'm reading is going to happen. It's tough. So I'm just optimistic that everything's going to go right this week and everything's going to be fine. But that's not going to happen. Trades.
Yeah,
I just really am ready for the trades to start.
I'm more skeptical. I believe nothing that is said. We know that there's a lot of smoke screens this time. So a lot of it's not going to happen. But hopefully, again, we get good landing spots for fantasy. That's ultimately what we are here for.
That's all we need. And a draft class that's a little bit light on talent, like we've talked about that this week with, everyone that's joined us. We kind of know that besides this running back group, it's just a little bit light on talent. So we really need the fantasy gods to be in our favor this week to give us those best landing spots for everyone that we can. I do have some news though, Adam, before we get into the actual news, because I know one thing that is going to happen this week, because I got told by the big bosses over there at Fantasy Life, we're going to be running an early bird sale for everyone listening here at Sirius XM. I always say that we have the absolute best listeners, and I'm biased, I know that, but I stand by that as well. So I'm really excited to let everyone know that today through April 27th, you can get 25% off your first year of any Fantasy Life Plus package with promo code EARLY25. So EARLY 25, Adam. I'm really excited that we're doing this because the draft prep has gone into it, and now people just want to hit the ground running with their fantasy football teams. So I've seen a few sneak peeks. I can't say a lot of everything, all the new stuff coming to fantasylife.com, but we've got amazing tools. We've got amazing upgrades for 2025 that are coming as well. And it's just going to be, to be honest, it's going to be game changing. So I'm really excited that we're running this. If you've ever thought about getting a Fantasy Life Plus subscription, now's the perfect time. Again, early 25, that gets you 25% off your first year of any Fantasy Life Plus subscription, valid through April 27th. So we've got the best listeners. You guys get to know first, and I'm excited, Adam. I'm ready. I'm sending it to all my family members. Mother's Day's coming up, Father's Day, birthdays. This is what they get. Fantasy Life Plus.
Anytime you're offered a discount, you take it. You got to save money in this economy. So take advantage of it now, because it also will pay off, because more than likely,
yes,
you will win your league. Like, you can't guarantee winning leagues, but we'll put you in position, and then hopefully everything works out. But having the information and data is so important, and especially preparing now. This is when you start to prepare. Too many people wait until August, and you want to be able to be ready and rolling before then, so everything comes easy to you. And we'll give you all the tools, data, stats, and information to help you do that. So take advantage of that discount.
Take advantage of it. Early 25, EARLY 25. When you go on at checkout, that gets you 25% off, only valid through April 27th here. So, and it's really all the tools that Adam and I talk about during the show. We're going to fantasylife.com. There's nowhere else we go. So when we talk with Dwain McFarland, Thor Nystrom, all those tools that you want to use for the 2025 season, they're all right there. Again, early 25 for that 25% off, just for our special listeners here at Sirius XM. All right, let's get into more news, just as good of news that we just gave you, though. I will say that. Let's start over with the Browns and Giants. Looks like, Adam, they are fielding trade calls as the NFL draft nears. So that was per ESPN's Peter Schrager. It looks like they are looking and they are willing to trade some of those picks. The only one that isn't really is the Tennessee Titans, which, again, we've talked about, worst kept secret in the NFL. The Tennessee Titans seem like they are going to go ahead and get Cam Ward, but after that, there could could be some question marks with the Cleveland Browns and New York Giants. So it looks like there are teams calling to trade up, potentially teams that are wanting to go out and get Travis Hunter. We've heard a little bit of noise on the Ashton Genty teams maybe trying to trade up, leapfrog the Las Vegas Raiders, who are right now the betting favorites to land Ashton Genty at number 6. But this isn't a surprise. I mean, they're going to pick up the phone, and if they get a good deal in a haul of picks, why not?
And you got to put this information out there if you're those teams, especially if you're not 100% sure of who you're going to take. And also, there are teams that want to move up. They covet certain players and they're not in a position to get them. So you want to see what you can get. Even if you have no intentions of trading the pick, you have to put that out there because you never know. Someone at the last minute might say, yeah, we really want Ashton Genty and we're not going to get him. So let's move up. So it makes sense. You should, in fantasy too, whether you're trading players, you should always put players on the market, see what the interest is. You never know. You might have no intention of trading a player, and then you get an offer that's just overwhelming that you never thought someone would give to you. It's the same situation here. It doesn't mean these teams are going to essentially trade these picks, but you have to find out what you can get for them, especially if you're not locked in to a certain player, and maybe you have multiple players. Maybe there's someone a little bit lower down that you have higher on your board than most people. Then it makes sense to see what you can get for that pick.
Yeah, all 32 teams right now still have their original first round pick this year, which historically we know that there's going to be trades on draft night. I'm the optimistic one here, but I can tell you that right now, Adam, there's going to be at least one of them. So this one is, it's interesting because the Browns are the team that is also looked at as, hey, they need a quarterback. If they can get a haul of picks, I'd be shocked more if the Browns trade out of their number 2 pick than I would the New York Giants, because it feels like if Travis Hunter is there, that is the guy that they want to go and get. And maybe they trade, like we talked with Thor Nystrom about yesterday, trade back into the first round to get their quarterback, or maybe they think that they can wait going into the second round, but they need a quarterback. The New York Giants also need a quarterback, but they have other needs. It's not as pressing, it feels like, with the Giants because they have Russell Wilson, because they have Jameis Winston. So I'd be more surprised if Cleveland moved than the New York Giants did.
Yeah, it feels that way. Plus, Cleveland's in a position to pick in first pick of round 2, where maybe they get the quarterback they want, or they move up just a little bit and get 2 really good players. So, yeah, you got to put this out there and see who bites. I think that's basically what they're trying to see is, okay, who's going to come up and try and overwhelm us with some picks? And maybe it doesn't happen at all. Maybe there's no offer that's appeasing for these teams to make a trade. But of course, like, all this stuff starts to come out days before the draft. It happens every single year.
Every year. Just like they always add Draft Day, the movie, back to the streaming platforms. Have you seen that one? You like that movie? Yeah?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. You don't get so excited about it. You don't love it? Come on. What are we doing?
No, I do like it. Come on.
Okay. All right, fine. You gonna watch it before the draft? Just get ready, prepared, like we're in the war rooms?
Probably not. There's too many other sports going on for that. Okay. But then again, I guess at like 2 a.m. when everything's over, you're right. I can watch it.
What are you doing? When you get up, when you stay up till like 3 or 4 in the morning, why not watch Draft Day? I think that's a great movie.
That's a good idea. I might have to do that.
There you go. All right. Well, it's streaming back on Netflix. This is hashtag not an ad. I just saw it the other day and I was like, there it is. Gotta watch it. All right. Next part of the news here at the top of the hour, we just want to get to. It looks like the Steelers have said that the Aaron Rodgers situation, Adam, will not impact their draft plans. So they had a lot of teams, you're going to hear some quotes coming out in these next couple of days. But the Steelers did have their pre-draft press conference over there on Tuesday. And their general manager just came out and said, quote, "I know you're going to ask about the quarterback position. I'll just tell you guys the same thing we discussed in Palm Beach. That's when the league meetings were happening. It looks like they said all options are on the table on how we acquire two more quarterbacks. I assure you, we're going to have 4 when we get to training camp." So 4 quarterbacks, they've got 2 right now. They need to find the other 2.
Yeah, they're clearly drafting a quarterback. There's no question about it. We all know it. And then we're still waiting on Aaron Rodgers. So either way, even if they do bring in Rodgers, what is he there? 1 year, maybe 2. So they still need to find a future quarterback. We know it's not Mason Rudolph. So there's no doubt they're taking a quarterback. It really, what they're saying is true. A lot of times right now, the truth is not being spoken, but in this case, we all know the Steelers are coming out of this draft with a quarterback.
1 year, 10 M's for Aaron Rodgers, right? Isn't that what he?
Yeah, I said it, $10 million.
10 M's, not 10 million, 10 M's. Just like that's what we requested as well. If anyone needs a starting quarterback, call Adam Ronis for $10 million and he'll go get it done. But
I
listen,
can't play
right.
quarterback, but I would if I was offered 10 million. I'd do the best I could.
You'd do the best you could. You could make it through a full game.
No, I can't. I'm not a.
Halftime?
I don't have
Could
the.
you make it to
I'm not
halftime?
a. I can't throw a football well. I can catch it, but
you don't need to throw it. You just need to kind of stay alive.
Just hand it off 50 times, dashed and Genty. Okay, I can do that.
About? Yeah,
you can make it. Hand it off and dart to the sideline.
Exactly. Just scurry over. Scurry over to the side. You'd be fine. But yeah, this is one of those things where, again, we're going to hear a lot of pre-draft quotes coming out here in the next couple of days. And this is one where we knew the situation. Now, Aaron Rodgers not impacting their draft plans. I agree with that as well. I think, we always knew that they were going to walk away with a quarterback. It's just what they do after the fact. If it's Aaron Rodgers, if they go out and have to try and find a different veteran quarterback to bring in. And it's just, it'll just be interesting to see which one they actually are able to get. Because I've seen now, Adam, I don't know if you were looking at Twitter today, but it looks like the Steelers getting Shedeur Sanders is now kind of gone cold. Like one of their beat reporters tweeted out today that it doesn't believe that they're going to get, that they're going to get him the Saints. So that would be interesting too. If Shedeur Sanders is there, Steelers go and get him.
It's a possibility for sure. If he lasts there, it sounds like he is at this point.
That sounds like it. 21, and the Saints pick 9. I bet he could be there.
From all reports, the Saints are not taking Sanders.
I know, but that was just today, like over the last 24, 48 hours that's come out, because a week ago it was that, we get the Derek Carr news with his injury. And again, if you haven't heard that, he's got a shoulder injury coming into this NFL draft, and that's putting his 2025 season at risk. Surgery is also on the table. To me, though, always we kind of assumed that they knew that going in. It was news to us, but to the organization, they had to have known. So again, that probably didn't sway any of their draft plans for the New Orleans Saints. But yeah, it feels more and more as we get closer to this draft that maybe Shedeur could be there at 21 for Pittsburgh. And then it feels like that's a good situation for them.
Yeah, I mean, look, they have to get someone in there. Because you can't count on Aaron Rodgers now. I mean, I would think at this point they must have some idea though whether he's coming there or not.
I don't know. Do we ever know what's happening with Aaron Rodgers? Does anyone ever know what's happening with Aaron Rodgers? I can't imagine. When he went on the Pat McAfee show, he said he has no timeline and that he's not going to stick to a timeline based on teams. I don't know. It's just drama. So we'll see. But they are saying that the situation isn't going to impact their draft plans. We know that they're going to go into training camp with 4 quarterbacks. So they just have to get the other 2. No big deal, Adam. They just have to get the other 2.
Easy to find 2 quarterbacks.
Listen, if there's any guy that can get this done though, and a coach that I am not going to be the one to just say it's not going to happen, it's Mike Tomlin, to be honest with you. Like, he gets it done. He's one of the best coaches in the NFL.
Yeah, well, and what's crazy though about Sanders is like all the teams are close in the betting market to land him. Like there's not a big gap. Yeah, it's like the Browns, Steelers, Saints, and Giants are all close. I have no idea what's going to happen on Thursday. That's going to be this has to be the biggest storyline of the whole draft. Really, we can talk about, all these other offensive guys. We can look on the defensive side, but this is the biggest thing that I've seen. The question of where is Shedeur Sanders going to go and at what pick? Is he going to fall? Is he going to go in the top 10? It's just the biggest question. So we always have to bring it up. It felt like a month, 2 months ago, he was going in the top 10. Now it feels like he's not.
Top 10, it felt like top 5, right? It felt like it was to the Browns at 2. It doesn't seem like it at this point, because if the Saints aren't taking him, then he's not going in the top 10 unless team trades up. But that seems unlikely as well. Yeah, we'll see. Again, that's why we have to bring it up every time, because the Shedeur Sanders, where is he going to go, is probably the biggest question we have leading into draft night. Just one more piece of news here that I want to get out of the way, because I know we've talked about George Kittle here over the past couple of weeks just with contract stuff, but voluntary workouts started. Keyword, I understand, is being voluntary. So these players, Adam, do not have to show up. Brock Purdy's there and George Kittle is not there. And so the difference here is that Brock Purdy is entering the last year of his rookie deal in line for a significant pay raise in 2025 once they get that contract all done. George Kittle, we know he's coming off a phenomenal season last year, especially for us in fantasy football. He's 31 years old, also entering the last year of a 5-year, $75 million contract. So reports have been that they're pretty far apart with Kittle, more close to a contract extension with Brock Purdy. But just, something to note, especially since we've talked about him and the 49ers potentially getting a tight end in the draft this year.
49ers tend to take these things really far. End. Yeah, that's the one thing. So keep that in mind. So he may miss voluntary workouts the entire way. I wouldn't even be surprised if he misses parts of training camp because they're saying the negotiations are stalled and it's not that close. So you could understand why Kittle wants to get paid. He is obviously very important to him, to the team. And while he is getting older, I mean, he looked really good last year. So,
oh my gosh, he looked phenomenal.
Yeah, he's, I'm not really worried about him as far as age. I mean, he's 31, but he's coming off a great season where he was a great value in fantasy because I think that was probably as late as we've seen him go over the last few years.
Yeah, 5th round. I think.
Not even later. Even later than that. Some drafts. Yeah. And obviously he became a bigger piece of the offense, even though the targets were similar to recent years. But, the 8 touchdowns were the second most he's had in his career. So, and the 78 receptions were the most he had since 2019. So injuries played a part there where they had to feature him more. But we all know if he just gets the targets, he's going to produce.
Yeah, he's one of those top tight ends that we're going to target in fantasy football this year, even with this incoming rookie class. Like he's someone that we're going to want, and we're not going to get the discount going into 2025. So I'm glad you brought up that they do take a while to get these deals done. It's like August, I want to say it's late August. You're kind of creeping into September, and you're looking around saying, well, wait a second, when is this going to actually happen? But can you imagine the drama that they could stir up if they do actually take a tight end in this draft? That was from Thor Nystrom, so you guys can go and check that out, because he did at one point say, hey, if something crazy could happen, he could see the 49ers going out and getting a tight end. Imagine what we would talk about. George Kittle isn't signed. They got a new tight end. What's going on? The drama.
Yeah, that would not be good if you had George Kittle.
No, but we could talk about it. It'd be good for the airways, right?
Yes, it would.
We could talk about the drama there. All right, those were all the pieces of news though that I wanted to hit. First thing going into this, we've got a great show lined up for you guys today, though. Tons of guests coming in, getting you ready for this NFL draft. And again, I'll tell you throughout the whole show, but I want to remind you listening right now, we've got 25% off your first year of any Fantasy Life Plus packages with promo code EARLY25, EARLY25 at checkout. So you can go and do that at fantasylife.com. All the tools that we talk about, everything is right there, and it is getting, I can't tell you everything, but everything that's coming in 2025 is going to be amazing for Fantasy Life. So make sure you go and check that out. Code EARLY25 to go and do that. We're talking with the one and only Dwain McFarland here, coming up next. Dwain McFarland, the one and only, joining us right now to break down this NFL draft just right around the corner. Dwain, how you doing? How's it going?
I'm doing excellent. I have to in person say happy birthday to Adam Ronis.
Right?
I don't know if this is old news at this point, but I think what we mainly found out is that Ronis doesn't really monitor our internal Slack messages. He didn't give a thank you until Monday, and I think 30 people said happy birthday on Saturday.
I appreciate it. I didn't see it till then. I don't know why. Sometimes I get alerts, sometimes I don't, but I didn't get those, and then I saw those messages. So thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Watch out. Matthew Berry could be monitoring whether or not you're watching those or not. Just saying, Ronis.
Never send him important information. I always text it, because if it's through Slack, he's not going to get it. So I'm with you. But it is a happy belated birthday to Adam Ronis here. Dwain, we've got you here. And again, fantasylife.com. That's where everyone can go and check out the rookie supermodel, everything that you've done leading up until this NFL draft. So I'm curious with you, let's start with the running backs, because for as much as we've talked about how deep of a running back class this is, Dwain, you've found that they're good, but maybe not necessarily elite, right?
Yeah, and look, we all want them to be elite. We're all rooting for the NFL, we're rooting for players, we're rooting for fantasy football, but like a litmus test for me, or kind of the bar, Kendall, and I'll be interested to see what you and Ronis think. It's the 2017 class. That's elite. That when you look at that, you're like Leonard Fournette, pick 4. Christian McCaffrey, pick 8. Joe Mixon, pick 48. Dalvin Cook, pick 41. We're talking about all guys that went on to have top 3 finishes. Christian McCaffrey obviously just blew the lid off of everything. Dalvin Cook also had a really great year. Fournette probably didn't quite live up to like extreme hype, but still was a really good fantasy asset for multiple years. So like if I placed this year's class into that one, just as a way of ranking them, Genty would rank as the 3rd best back. And we love Ashton Genty. He comes out at a 90 in the supermodel. So for those listening, supermodel, everything's on a scale of 50 to 100. And we're rating for a player's production, which adjusts, Kendall, for their schedule, for how good their teammates were, like how hard was it to get on the field, all these different components. And then we're looking at what the film grade says. And for that, like we're using PFF as well as Lance Zierlein from NFL.com. So we're combining all these things together to create this supermodel score. And Genty, absolutely amazing. In fact, he lands in a tier where 100% of his comps went on to be top 6 running backs within their first 3 years. So Genty's a slam dunk. Like it's happening. He's going to be a running back 1 in fantasy football. But to tell you how good that class was, like he would have been the 3rd best back, right? And then if you look at that next tier down, Joe Mixon and Dalvin Cook both would have graded above Omari and Hampton based on his mock draft data right now. Hampton would have been a 79 in the supermodel, an 81 for Joe Mixon, and 80 for Dalvin Cook. So again, another really good prospect, but we're talking about 4 guys in 2017 that would have been in those top 2 tiers, and we have 2 that would have been in those top 2 tiers here. I think the strength really of this class is below that, and it's just the fact that we've got Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Johnson, Cam Scatabo, Dylan Sampson. They're all in this tier below, Kendall, which has a lower hit rate, but we've got a lot of wide open depth charts right now in the NFL. You could look across a lot of places and be like, oh, I could see them starting like immediately and getting 55%, of the snaps, that sort of thing. So I think the class is still overall going to pay off. I'm just being a little bit nitpicky here. Maybe I'm just being an old man yelling at the clouds. I'm getting old, Kendall. I was just mowing my yard before this, so maybe I'm also just cranky. I can't tell you for sure. I think it's a really good class, but I don't think we should be calling it elite. I think the other last component is just the pass catching backs we had in that class. We had Kamara, we had CMC, Joe Mixon had a 20 targets per route run in college. Dalvin Cook, we've all seen be a really good receiver. Aaron Jones, for crying out loud, who I haven't even mentioned, went late in that draft, was a really good receiver. This bottom tier of guys I just named that are really good, none of them have those receiving profiles besides Cam Scatabo. Like he's the one besides Genty that we could look at and say maybe they're that true elite 3-down back if everything works out perfectly. So yeah, I don't know. It just could be the yard mowing in Texas with it already getting too hot.
It's the boomer take. It's fine. It's why we love you, Dwain.
Wow.
It's the boomer.
You just went beyond all the bad things I said about myself, and you called me a boomer.
I'm sorry.
Adam, do you like put up with this like all the time? Or
yeah, all the time. All the time.
He has to.
And this week too. Now that we're back to weekdays for this week, it's increasing even more. But you mentioned Genty, and everyone's talking about him. Does landing spot for him matter to you at all? It doesn't matter what team he lands on.
No. Like that's how good he is. Well, look, I will say this. I think there are a few that we could probably agree on, Ronis, that we wouldn't want to see. Like, I don't want to see him on the Eagles. Like, Saquon Barkley obviously is Saquon Barkley. If you go to the Ravens, you probably got to wait a year before you get like a 60% snap share. You got Derrick Henry still sitting there. You go to Detroit, obviously you got David Montgomery plus Jahmyr Gibbs. That would be a nightmare. Atlanta, you got Bijan Robinson, who Ashton Genty finished 1 point better in the rookie supermodel than Bijan Robinson. That's how good this guy is. But you've also got Tyler Algier there. Then I think there's a tier above that's like the 40 to 50% range, probably snaps in year 1 for Genty, which would be Indianapolis. Like Jonathan Taylor, you're not just going to take it over in year 1. But let's be honest, Taylor hasn't been the elite back he was early in his career. And then you have the 49ers. Like, because Christian McCaffrey's so good on passing downs, like I just don't see him giving those up. But I really do think beyond that, which is a lot, I think he pretty much takes over the backfield immediately or by midseason. I think there's some examples there where it's like Green Bay. Do you think he takes it over in week 1 from Josh Jacobs? No. But could I see by week 8 where we're like, oh man, Ashton Genty, 60% of the attempts, and now we're looking at Josh Jacobs being 35%. Like, I think that's totally in play. But obviously, the teams that are in the top 12, like there's some slam dunks there. There's like the Raiders, the Cowboys, the Browns. Those are all like super easy ones. As much as I love Chase Brown, I think if Ashton Genty went to the Bengals, like immediately the running back 1. So I think there's a lot of places he takes over day 1, but most places probably by midseason, and just a few where we're like, we don't necessarily love it.
Talking with the one and only Dwain McFarland, as you already all know by now. Dwain, should I just keep stirring the pot with you then and talk about maybe your most overrated running back in this class, since we're already here in Caleb Johnson? Because we talked about this with Thor Nystrom, me and Thor, when we were on this podcast, where he's a bit higher on him with his rankings. But what did you see from him in the supermodel that makes him a little bit overrated for you?
Well, if folks haven't checked out Thor's 500, his top 500, guys, we're not joking. Top 500. Usually when someone says the word top, they're like, my top 10. No, Thor's like my top 500. Like, the man is insane, and he won't comp anyone to the same player. Like, he's got like these ridiculous standards for himself. I don't know that Thor ever sleeps, so you guys should really go check that out. Check that out over at fantasylife.com. But this is one disagreement like the Thor and I had. It is on Caleb Johnson. It's really more so with the supermodel. And the supermodel is just this data-driven approach. We just let the data lead us, right? And that's my kind of the way I get myself off the hook. Like, if there's a player ever that's like, oh man, no, it wasn't me, man. It was a supermodel. But if the player does really well, I'll be like, well, I designed the supermodel. So like, that's the beauty of it, Kendall. But no, all kidding aside, like Caleb Johnson, if you look at him, here's the challenge, right? Like, he did have that really good year in his final season, super productive. I know you guys have probably talked about all that, but like, if you look at his overall production rating in the supermodel, it's a 76. And remember, everything's on a scale of 50 to 100. So he's right around the middle. That's not bad. But that's more of a late round 2 to round 3 kind of pick. And remember, film is also in here. Lance Zierlein was not as high on Caleb Johnson as where Thor is. Also, his career PFF receiving and rush rates go into that film grade as well. And he's just not a guy that historically players like him, they haven't gone in like the middle of the second round, which right now is where mock drafts have Caleb Johnson going. In fact, if you look at guys that had 13% or lower career targets per route run, so that's not, just for the record, not very good. You also look at their explosive rush rate being 14% or lower, also not very good. That's the 30th percentile since 2018. There's one comp that went in round 2, and it's A.J. Dillon. So most of his comps are really round 3 type prospects. And so all the supermodel is saying is that he's probably getting pushed up the board a little bit too far compared to other players that have been really successful that were round 2 picks. He looks more like a round 3 pick. So if you look at his closest comps in the model, Kendall, by taking... So there's 2 versions of the model. There's the supermodel, which includes the draft capital, which matters. It's the biggest input, right? But right now, it's just mock draft data. We care about it because if an NFL team picks a player, like, it's more than just their talent. It's like, well, the GM wants them to do well. The coach often has input. They want them to do well. So they have skin in the game. So I don't want to say this stuff doesn't matter. But here are the players where there was at least a 20-spot difference between their supermodel rating and then the version of the model that doesn't include draft capital, right? Just looks at everything except where they get taken in the draft. Sony Michel, did you guys love that? He was a -20. I didn't love Sony Michel. Like, he gave you a season or two. Then you got Caleb Johnson right below him. You got Kenneth Walker. That worked out. He was a -27. But then you get Ronald Jones and you get Miles Sanders. So there's definitely some busts in this range of the draft that looked really similar to what you get with Caleb Johnson. And that's all the model's calling out. Again, the model is not designed to say, oh my God, I'm pounding the table for this player or that player. It's really designed to say, all these players are similar. You should probably like take the one that's going the lowest. The problem is with Caleb Johnson, he's getting grouped with guys that are ahead of where he should probably be going. And so the model's actually saying, you probably should wait a little bit on Caleb Johnson, and maybe he's not the guy you should target. So all things being said, like, Kendall, if he goes like to the Cowboys at the beginning of round 2 and they don't have anyone in their backfield, like, it's still going to be a good thing for him. It's just saying he's a little more limited in his skill set than some of the other guys that have traditionally been hits.
Which running back do you think can jump the most if they have high draft capital?
So the one that I would say, Ronis, is Bajal Tootin.
Yes.
RJ Harvey's in the conversation, but Tootin, like, really strong athletic profile, so speed score does count in the model. But he's one of these guys that, you know, a lot of the film folks will tell you, like, if he lands in a zone scheme, probably not going to be good. So you would probably rather him land in, like, a power kind of offense. But I think of the Mike McDaniel type play callers, where, they'll run those toss plays where it's just essentially, hey, you know where you're going, you're really fast, and teams are going to be worried about all these other things, and we're going to create this misdirection, and then you just go score a touchdown. Like, that would ultimately be like the best landing spot for a player like this. But Tootin had a solid receiving profile, very explosive playmaker, has the body type to actually hold up to say like 240, 250 rushing attempts. So I think he would be, not I think, he is the one, because I've actually like looked at this. He's one of the guys, like if he suddenly was a round 2 pick in the NFL draft, like he would scream up boards. He would move to running back 5. In fact, in the non-draft capital version, Ronis, of the model, he's the running back 5 right now. If you look at him with draft capital in there, he's running back 8.
Wow. That's all King Tootin, right, Dwayne? That's what we're gonna call him.
So many ways we
combine.
could go with that.
Yeah,
especially with dad jokes. But they're bad, so I'm not going to do it. I don't want to embarrass Zoe.
Yeah, you can't do that. Before we let you go, who are the Cowboys drafting that's not going to make you totally lose your mind in the first round? Like if they skip a running back with their first round pick, are you gonna say, okay,
I'm okay.
That's fine? Okay, all right.
If it's Genty, if it's Genty, like just I'm going to want him to take him, even though like.
They're not taking
technically,
Genty. He's not making that.
Well, he's going to be
far.
gone.
Yeah.
He's going to be gone. But I'm saying if he fell to them, originally the Cowboys were the landing spot for Genty, and like he's steamed since then, like over the last month. But I don't want to take. I like Omarion Hampton, but I don't want to take him at pick 12. I think the Cowboys have plenty of other needs. I think you could go offensive line. I think you could go defensive back. I think there's some really nice cornerbacks you could look there. So I feel like there are just too many other things that are technically more valuable, and because the running back class does have some depth that you could get to in round 2 or 3, I think if the Cowboys play their cards right, like they could come away with 2 starters in the first 2 rounds. But if you take the running back in round 1, you might not be getting another starter in round 2. But I feel fairly certain if you take a different position in round 1, with the Cowboys depth chart and the way it looks, you could still be getting your starting running back in round 2 with like a Quinshon Judkins, someone like that.
Okay.
So I would prefer they not go running back unless the name is Genty, because he just happened to fall to them.
But round 4 is when we call you and ask if you're okay if they haven't taken one yet. That's when we say we need to get Dwayne on the show immediately so him and Ronis can just talk back and forth with each other and cry. Okay.
And I think it's the fantasy managers in us even more, probably, right, Ronis, on the running back thing, just because we look at the depth chart and we're like, oh my God, like whoever lands here could just take the whole thing over, and we would be able to project the volume. We'd feel really good about it, which we don't always get. A lot of times the best running backs or some of the good ones land in these murky spots, and the Cowboys are not a murky spot. Like we're talking about Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. So I feel like any running back taken in the first 3 rounds we should probably deem as immediately being the starter for the Cowboys.
Awesome. Well, Dwayne, appreciate you hopping on here. We get to talk to you a little bit more this week, but thanks for joining us here. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me on. I always love hanging out with you, Kendall, and Ronis, on the day that we get to wish him happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Happy belated birthday, Adam. Maybe we should play a birthday song coming back in. Appreciate you, Dwayne. There he goes. We're going to talk wide receivers here coming up next. All right, fantasy football fans, you already know NFL season is long over, but next season's action is already well underway. We're talking big trades, new signings, draft order shuffles, you name it, and all this preseason NFL action is easier to enjoy with the official beer of the NFL. So get a Bud Light delivered today and enjoy every season projection, every player trade, every coaching change, and draft pick with the clean, crisp taste of Bud Light, the official beer of the NFL. Stock up now for the offseason and enjoy. Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. To be clear, Adam's birthday was days ago. It's almost to the point where we can't say it anymore.
That's true. I guess what is the cutoff? This always happens with the new year.
7 days.
7 days. Okay, then my birthday was Saturday.
And I guess we're still in it, so we can play the birthday song.
So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Everyone wish Adam a happy belated birthday. Which, by the way, you did get about 35 Slack messages and didn't reply to us, so it's fine.
I did reply. I did
days
a couple
later.
of days ago. Yeah, because for some reason I don't always get notifications unless it's like a direct message.
No, whatever works for you. Let me just say that. I like that.
I'm not ignoring
birthday.
Anyway.
That's fine. All right, wide receiver preview. I have no way. A gift that could be for your birthday here. A late birthday gift for you could be some of these wide receivers. Look at that. Mid-season form could be some of these wide receivers that we get in this year's NFL draft. I know, listen, we've talked quite a bit about Tetairoa McMillan, but in case people haven't heard about Tet McMillan, he is the overall wide receiver 1 in this class. I know we can go back and forth and talk about him. If it was Travis Hunter as a full-time receiver, Travis Hunter would go ahead of him. But Tetairoa McMillan, Thor's wide receiver 1, the rookie supermodels wide receiver 1 as well. Not necessarily someone projected to be a huge superstar, Adam, but still someone that's going to be a steady wide receiver 1 or just this exceptional wide receiver 2 once he gets to the NFL, depending on where he goes. But definitely the best one of this class so far, 3,414 career receiving yards over there at Arizona, which was really impressive. Only Devontae Smith is the only other first-round receiver who had more receiving yards in college, and he was doing this. When you look back at the tape, he was doing this despite having this 33% of his targets being uncatchable, which was one of the lowest rates among the first-round wide receivers. So everything he was doing was great. You look at him again. This is not necessarily the strongest wide receiver class, especially when you compare him to what we got last year. We got lucky, and there was so much talent there. But Tet McMillan is the wide receiver 1 of this class, and he'll be good no matter where he goes.
I think so. I know some people are questioning him a little bit, and they cooled off a little bit on him, but now we're starting to see him being talked about going in the top 10 again. But he's the prototypical X that you want in the NFL. He's got the size, 6'4", 220. He's a good route runner for his size. He can go up there and get the ball. He good run after the catch. So yeah, I think he's going to be a good pro for sure. And landing spot will dictate, obviously, the target share, but I think he's going to be a good pro.
I've seen some, I've seen some back and forth on, and we can talk with Dwain about this tomorrow. I didn't ask him for today, but Matthew Golden, in the supermodel, you'll hear wide receiver 5 and compared to Thor's wide receiver 2, but I believe that's someone that Dwain also believes is being a little bit, pushed up too far. And so Matthew Golden, really, he had a phenomenal pre-draft process, right? That's why we started to talk about him more and more, because when you go to the NFL Combine and you run a 4.29 40, your name's going to be brought up a lot because you are fast, and he was winning at all 3 levels from the slot or boundary when he was in college. So he's got the skills, right? But it's really the size thing, the lack of size and play strength that people are probably going to nitpick him for, and that's the one thing that Thor Nystrom has brought up in his rookie rankings, which you can go and check out at fantasylife.com. That's the one thing when you look at it, Golden, but he has risen so much in these past couple months. I'm really curious to see where he goes, because now he's this first-round pick, and it looks like he might go after Tetairoa McMillan for some people.
Yeah, I even seen some people want to bet him as the first receiver off the board.
Really?
Although, even just because the odds are plus money, but I don't see it at this point. But you're right, he's gotten so much hype because of the 40 time, and that's concerning for me. I do think there's some. Yeah, I'm a little worried about him. The hands are not great; they're inconsistent. You mentioned the strength is lacking, so he's got the speed, and this happens a lot. These speed receivers move up, and sometimes they just don't pan out in the NFL. So I don't think he's a lock to produce.
Interesting. I'm looking, and again, we'll go through it with Dwain McFarland, but I have seen a little bit of the conversation skewing that same way, where it's like Matthew Golden might have gotten a little bit too much, maybe, overhyped, and we never want to use the word, bust, but that's the one that's been thrown around a little bit with him, with if he goes that high in this year's draft and he has to, perform up to those expectations, he might not be able to do it. I'm excited for him, but yeah, he's fast, but he's just one of these guys. I think he was comped to stylistically Ladd McConkey in the rookie supermodel over there. So not the same player, I should say, stylistically, but the range of outcomes is kind of similar when you look at, the data from the supermodel and what could happen with the future production. I think it just now depends on team.
Yeah, I think so too. Obviously, landing spot is always key, but I think he's being hyped too much though, just because of the 40 time. So that concerns me.
Yeah, 4.29 40 though. You're going to be talked about when you record a 4.29 40. What about, where do you want to go here? Emeka Egbuka or Luther Burden? Who are you more excited between the two for in 2025?
Both, but I would say probably a little bit more Egbuka for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, good slot receiver, which translates well to the NFL. He's good against zone coverage. He's really good after the catch. So if he's in the open field, it's going to be really tough to bring him down. So he's got good toughness as well, and you love these players after the catch. So
yeah,
I think you're going to see him go probably late first, early second round.
I'm with you. I really like Igbuka. Not to say that that means I don't like Luther Burden, and we're going to talk about him, but Emeka Igbuka, Thor's wide receiver 3, the Supermodels wide receiver 4, so they're pretty much in lockstep there. And if you don't know about Emeka Igbuka, his calling cards really route running and efficiency. Like that's what he was during college, and he was deployed like Jackson Smith-Njigba, former teammate over there at Ohio State. So 95th percentile in separation percentage, and he's just really good. And he played, the other thing, Adam, is that playing in such a loaded program and being able to perform and deliver is also a calling card for Emeka Egbuka. So he did a ton of damage. I think when we look at him, again, it all depends on landing spot, right? But he could be that borderline wide receiver 2. And if he goes to a really great spot where we think that he can produce right away, like he does give this wide receiver 1 upside, but it would really have to be probably more of a perfect spot than anything else. But we'll take a wide receiver 2, especially in this draft where these wide receivers aren't necessarily as deep, but Egbuka is just going to be really good in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think a lot of these receivers are going to have a big impact in fantasy this year, but we know that going in. It's just not that type of class. A few of them, if they get in the right spot, maybe we're talking about them for fantasy.
Right spot. And maybe a few of them, we never want injuries, but if they were to go somewhere where someone goes down, that's always something we have to, but that's things we figure out after the draft, right? That's something we can't control right now, but depending on the depth chart, it's going to be good for some of these guys. We'll talk more about Luther Burden. I'm back on, by the way, I'm back on Rome Odunze this year. I was just a year too early. So he's going to thrive this year. I'm back. Everyone on that offense, we're going to be like, we're back. But he was the guy last year that went, I mean, we were like, hey, great landing spot. It was when, Keenan Allen was there though. And I said, I think he can beat him out. And it didn't work out. But it's some of those guys where landing spot, Rome Odunze, they really liked him in the supermodel. And it just didn't pan out for 2024.
Well, and that's a perfect example of why landing spot's important. We knew how talented Odunze was, but when you look at that situation, you had to say, okay, is there going to be enough targets for him to be successful in fantasy? It happened the year before with Jackson Smith-Njigba, right? He was going in a situation, you're like, well, the way this offense operates, he's just not going to get enough targets. But then this past year, that's when, okay, I see Lockett a year older. Now I want Smith-Njigba. And I think it's a good comparison to Odunze this year, especially with the offense expected to be upgraded. The offensive line was boosted and obviously a new coach coming in. So yes, this is a better buying opportunity for Odunze this year. It's a different situation.
Never wrong, just early. That's going to be the theme for us on the air. Never wrong. We were just a year too early, and that's totally fine here. No, hand up, I was definitely wrong last year, and we always admit to that when that happens. Let's continue on here. We've got more mock draft mayhem. We've got Matthew Friedman's latest mock draft here live at fantasylife.com. And remember, we've got 25% off Fantasy Life Plus subscriptions at fantasylife.com right now. So make sure you go over there and use code EARLY25, EARLY25. If you've been looking at a Fantasy Life Plus package and you've been thinking about buying it, now is the time, 25% off. So make sure you go over there and do that. We're going to go through Friedman's mock draft coming up next. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you right here. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us today, getting you ready for that NFL draft right around the corner. And as always, fantasylife.com, that's where you can find this mock draft here from Matthew Friedman. Not a ton of surprises, I will say, during this mock draft. I do like the Bears at pick 10, taking Tyler Warren. Your Dallas Cowboys taking, we just talked about Tedero McMillan and these wide receivers, taking Tet at pick 12. He has Shedeur Sanders going to the Steelers, pick 21. The interesting one is the Rams going out and getting another receiver and picking Matthew Golden, who we just spent the last segment talking about, but that's pick 26. And that would be kind of interesting because that's where we definitely talk about landing spot again, is like where, they're going to be able to utilize him, but that's definitely going to be a smaller role than, let's say, if he does go to the Dallas Cowboys, where he would really be that number 2 for your team.
Yeah, would not be the best landing spot with the Rams. There just wouldn't be enough targets there. That would obviously be looking towards the future for them. Well, yes, he would play a role this year, but compared to going to Dallas, where they need help opposite CeeDee Lamb, and they definitely could use some speed on that offense, where it's much more appealing if Golden would go to Dallas compared to the Rams.
You know who I didn't see in this mock for the first round is Luther Burden. Luther Burden not here. He calls him a borderline, prospect for round one, with Emeka Egbuka as well. But listen, Luther Burden, I understand why people are a little bit cautious about him, right? You look at him, you say he's a gadgety player. When you look at everything that he did in college, like, they might be a little bit concerned. If he falls, though, into the second round, whoever gets him, that's going to be a steal. Like, I understand being a little bit cautious about him, but for what it's worth, he still feels like someone that you're going to want to target in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, he is one of those polarizing players. You hear different opinions on him. So he's really good, though, after the catch. And,
Yes.
you know, he's got some good juice and, good out of the slot. So I could see him being successful on the right team. But I probably don't think he goes in the first round. He's probably more the second round pick.
So, well, that's what it feels like now. Before, months ago, and that's why things change. We know that this is a fluid situation. Everything changes, but to go from where he was, which was first round pick months ago, and now it being more second round. I just think, again, it all depends on landing spot, but it just feels like he's working. He's gonna just have a good role, hopefully, depending on where he goes. And if they want a yak weapon in the NFL, like, they go ahead and target Luther Burden, because that's what he's gonna give you. He's someone I'm excited about.
Yeah, I just want to see the landing spot, obviously.
Yeah.
But a lot, that's always what it is, though, with these receivers, because targets are so important.
Exactly. Our show Sunday will be like, just kidding. We don't want Luther Burden anymore because of the landing spot. I'm just kidding. But that is definitely going to be something where between now and our Sunday show, it could be a lot different here. We're going to continue on, though, going through the Fantasy Life Water Cooler, all the news and notes that you need to know here coming up next. Oh, an upgraded water cooler, Adam? Let's run through a brick wall. We're ready to go here. Water cooler right now. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you. Fantasy Life on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. As always, appreciate everyone hanging out with us today. FantasyLife.com. That's where you can get all this NFL draft information that you need heading into Thursday night. And have to remind you, and we're really excited about this because we're doing an early bird special right now through April 27th. So you can get 25% off your first year of any Fantasy Life Plus package with this promo code EARLY25, EARLY25. Listen, Adam, we've done a few of our meetings and we've been able to see some of the new tools that we're going to have, some of the upgrades for 2025. I'm really excited about it, and we can't share much more than that, but it's going to be game changing for the fantasy football season this year. So if you've ever been thinking about getting a Fantasy Life Plus package, now's the time to do it, because again, 25% off through April 27th. So you can use that code EARLY25, EARLY25 at checkout for 25% off. And it's the best time of the year, Adam. NFL draft, discount codes, what could be better?
And do it now, because you put it off. You're like, I have a couple of days deadline. No, you're going to forget. Well, we hope you don't forget. So do it now. Make sure you get in and utilize all these tools so you can dominate your fantasy drafts for the upcoming season, because we're all about winning and dominating.
Yeah, that's all we do is win right here. Early 25. You can also win. FantasyLife.com. Again, Kendall Valenzuela, Adam Ronis. Give us a follow at KValenzuela17, at Adam Ronis over there on Twitter. Let's get into it, Adam. Some of the pieces of news here. Let me just say, since we're talking about, maybe some contracts that we have to watch out for this season. James Cook also didn't show up to voluntary workouts. Again, I understand it's voluntary, so he does not have to be there. But again, I still think this is a situation where we have to watch it. Not necessarily, maybe they don't go into this year's NFL draft and get a running back, but Brandon Beane has not given a second contract to any running back that they've drafted during his time as general manager. So again, not necessarily a rumor, nothing really going on, just something that we'll have to watch out for the next couple months, because he wants in the ballpark of 17 million per year.
I think, it was around 15 million. Yeah.
15 million, thank you.
It's a lot to pay a running back, and Cook is coming off a really good season, boosted by touchdowns, 18 total touchdowns. But the workload just wasn't enough. Like, if you're telling me going into this fantasy season that we're going to get 240 touches from James Cook, it's not enough, because you can expect him to score 18 touchdowns again. I know the Bills are a prolific offense, but we saw in his first 2 years in the league, He had 4 rushing touchdowns. I know there was only 89 carries the rookie year, but he had 237 carries in 2023 and only had 2 rushing touchdowns. And, that was what I put in my write-up for Cook before last year. I said, look, if he gets the goal line carries and he gets into the end zone, he'll have that breakout year. And he had the touchdowns, but he just didn't have enough volume. So, again, you just do projections and you go, oh, this running back's going to have 240 total touches. That's not going to be a guy that you take high. And I think when you see drafts, Cook is going to be ranked right around RB12. And you better hope you get those touchdowns again, or you hope that the touches increase. But what would lead us to believe that's going to happen with the way they were using Ray Davis and Ty Johnson last year, especially down the stretch in the passing game? I mean, James Cook had 32 receptions last year. 32. It's an average of 2 per game.
Yep. And then that's what I'm saying. Then if they really do go and add another running back late in this draft, I know that we'll talk about draft capital and say, well, they're not going to overtake James Cook's role, but it's just never a good situation here. So maybe some touchdown regression, Adam. I mean, he's RB14 right now. Again, this is underdog ADP. So this is a little bit different. If you're not familiar with underdog, a lot of these wide receivers are taken earlier than in most drafts, but RB14 puts him right around Chase Brown, RB13, Marion Hampton going after James Cook. And yeah, that's about Breece Hall, RB12. That's his range right now.
I had Cook in a couple leagues last year and it was great, but there were some weeks where you were definitely worried, especially if it looked like it could be a lopsided game where there was a blowout. You were worried, all right, Cook might not play much in the fourth quarter, or, the touches are scaled back. So it wasn't enough. He was really boosted by the touchdowns. And it sucks because the guy is really good. He averaged 4.9 yards per carry. So you would just like to see him get more touches on a weekly basis because the touchdown saved him last year. If you cut those touchdowns in half, I don't even know where he would be at running back, like running back low RB2.
Yeah, that's what I was.
And I know you can't take them away, but we're projecting forward. And if you're looking at a similar workload, like what indication do we have that says, all right, they're really going to increase the workload for James Cook this year? I mean,
we don't have anything.
Yeah. So, and we see this with certain teams. The Green Bay did it for years with Aaron Jones. Like, we'd be like, wait, he's so efficient. Why aren't they giving him more touches? And maybe they feel, hey, we need to keep James Cook healthy. He's most efficient when we just don't give him 15 to 20 carries a week. Let's keep it in the 10 to 13 range, throw him a couple passes, take him off the field on third down. They did it a lot. Look, it worked. They had a successful season, but in fantasy, that's not ideal.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. And it's just, again, not necessarily saying it's a rumor out there or anything like that. But it's a situation that we are going to monitor for the next couple of months, because if you want $15 million per year, I think that would make him the 3rd highest paid running back in the NFL. So it's a lot of money. You understand, though, on the other side, why he wants to get paid now after having that great season. So we're always team, guys should get paid. We'll just see if they do it with James Cook and if they do it earlier rather than later. Next part of this water cooler. This is just a little bit of news right here, but the Jets did pick up 5th-year options on Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson. Just made me go and look at some of the other 5th-year options, Adam, that maybe we're going to see kind of come down in these next few weeks, next few months. Aiden Hutchinson's on the list, but when we look at other guys, let me just say Drake London is another one. Garrett Wilson already got his. Chris Olave, Jameson Williams. Chris Olave is got to be a big question, right? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they will, but it's the concussions It's a lot of factors. It's not only the concussions are number one. You always worry about that, a player that has had multiple concussions, and then you look at the state of the team and the quarterback situation. There's just a lot of needs there. And, Olave was a guy last year going in the 2nd round of drafts. And
it was between him. You were picking between him and Drake London. You were going back and forth saying, not you, but just anyone.
Yeah.
If they had a wide receiver.
I had London higher, but I did draft Chris Olave in several leagues. And man, it was brutal, just awful. So yeah, he's not going to go in the 2nd round this year. He'll move down, but no. I think that's a guy that's kind of a little fluid right now, where if you are drafting, you're like, okay, I want to get him at a discount or not pay the market value, and then we'll see what happens with the Saints after the draft. But either way, it doesn't seem like it's going to be a highly desirable spot this year.
No. And the thing with me and Chris Olave is just you feel bad. I remember going into 2024 being like, this is the breakout, reading all about it too. This is the breakout Chris Olave year. And he's got the tools, he's got the skill set, he's got the athleticism to be that guy. That's why we take him where we say, yeah, he's going to be able to outperform his ADP, even if we're taking him in the middle of the second round, like we did last year. But the concussions, I remember I believe his family was tweeting last year that they were like, just get him out of there because he was just getting hurt so often. So the Saints quarterback situation obviously is a huge question mark. Right now, he's going wide receiver 33, which makes sense with everything else going on, with all the questions that we have as well, to be going that late. So he goes around Jalen Waddle, Deebo Samuel, Juwan Jennings, Calvin Ridley. That's his range right now.
What a fall for Olave, but it makes sense though.
But he can outperform that ADP if you stay healthy and if you get a good quarterback situation. Like that's what you can tell yourself. But those are, you never want to say if this happens, then he can do it. Like the path is there, but it's just, yeah, it's a tough situation for someone that's so insanely talented. It's frustrating.
Yeah, look. 2 years ago, he had 138 targets. So that's what people were looking at last year. Like, okay, well, he'll receive a similar target share, maybe a little bit more, and injuries, offense fell apart. If you remember, long time ago, the Saints offense, the first 2 weeks of the season, they didn't put up 91 points. And it's like, is this team for real? And most people are like, it's Derek Carr. No, it's not for real. We've seen this movie so many times. We know it's not going to last.
That was electric, by the way, though. We were sitting here. It was an overreaction Monday. Let me just say this, but we were like, "Hey, Super Bowl in New Orleans. Maybe we'll see the Saints there." Yikes! Talk about a fall. But man, for 2 weeks it was fun, wasn't it?
Well, no, because one of those games was against the Cowboys, so no, it wasn't fun for me.
I had a great time. People forget about the Saints 2 weeks there. All right, next part of the water cooler here. Wanted to talk a little bit about Matthew Stafford and just the Rams overall in general. Matthew Stafford came out and said he doesn't think that Puka Nacua's role changes with Cooper Kupp gone. Again, we're going to get a few more quotes here this week from some of these teams, but he said, quote, "On the field, I don't see his role changing too much. I think he's done a hell of a job, whether he is given opportunities to go out there and make plays. He's been great in the pass game, great in the run game, and he's just a great locker room guy." This is also coupled with Davante Adams saying that he is truly optimistic about the Rams and not just hoping like he was for the past few seasons. I've said this before. I am excited about this Rams team this season with Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua. I know Cooper Kupp is gone. You enter Davante Adams, and then maybe if it's according to, Matthew Friedman, if they go out and get another receiver, now not great for fantasy football purposes if they do that, but I'm just excited about them. And I think Matthew Stafford does have a lot left there. And Davante Adams, he didn't show any real decline last season once he went to the Jets. So could be a good team to target this year.
The Rams, if they continue to do what they have done the last few years, they are one of the most fantasy-friendly offenses because we know where the football is going. We don't have to deal with 10 receivers getting a target every single week. We know Kyren Williams is going to get like 25 touches. Puka Nacua is going to get 10 to 14 targets. Davante Adams in a similar range. And we've seen Kupp and Nacua on the field at the same time. Both can put up top fantasy numbers, so I don't expect it to change. The only thing I want to see out of Puka Nacua is find the end zone a little bit more. That's the one thing that has been lacking. He only had 3 touchdowns last year, but most of us play in full point PPR or half point PPR. And if you're going to get, 10 to 12 targets a game, it's going to be enough. But for him to take that, be that top 3 receiver, I want to see some more touchdowns because, he only had 3 touchdowns last year. And he did miss time though, but
he did.
You want to see more than that. 3 touchdowns in 11 games, and then his rookie year he had 6 in 17. So I think you want to see more. But I think we would all take his rookie year, right, where he had 105 catches, 1486, and 6 touchdowns. You're like, oh, okay, I can live with 6 touchdowns if you're going to give me that type of production. So
exactly.
The biggest concern for me is the health, obviously, because he missed time last year, and there were games too where he would kind of limp to the sideline and return, but he's very physical out there. He's a real physical guy. He does not shy away from contact. So that would be the biggest concern. But I think in every draft, you'll see him go top 5 at wide receiver.
Yeah, he's going wide receiver 4 right now, which it feels like nothing is really going to change that right now. Devontae Adams is going wide receiver 20. So that was for him, by the way, 2-year, $46 million deal with the Rams. So I kind of, you understand the logic too when you add Devontae Adams to this wide receiver room. It was something where he said he wanted to come to California. I more thought that he could be with the Chargers, who again still haven't added anyone, by the way. If you would have told me months ago that we would be sitting here before the NFL draft and they wouldn't have added someone in free agency to pair with Ladd McConkey, I would have said you're lying. But here we are. So Matthew Stafford, for all intents and purposes, like, he can feed 2 of these wide receivers. Like, we've seen it happen before. So add Devontae Adams into this. Even though Cooper Kupp is gone, he can still kind of hopefully support both of those guys for fantasy football. Wide receiver 20, wide receiver 4, both of those. It feels like that could be where they just are the rest of the offseason. Could you see Devontae Adams moving up if people really start to look at him and say, I want a piece of that? Because he's going around, that's Mike Evans territory, that's Marvin Harrison Jr. territory, where he's going right now.
Yeah, maybe I could see a couple of spots, but not too much. But there, like I said, there's enough for both those guys to produce. The Rams generally, they don't really spread the ball around. And if they have Adams and Nakua, you are going to get the ball in their hands as much as possible.
That has to be that has to be one of the more expensive offenses to target now in fantasy.
That's true.
Besides Matthew Stafford, if you look at that, because Kyren Williams,
he's got to be like 12th, 13th at running back,
RB11.
Right? Yeah.
That's an expensive.
But then again, it's really the running back and receivers. They don't have a tight end that goes high, and Stafford doesn't either.
Not yet. Maybe they go and get one. Who knows? Probably not.
Yeah,
but
I don't see it.
That's still an expense. I mean, 3 though. 3 of the guys going inside the top 40. Yeah, that's expensive.
Yeah, there's got to be
top 35.
Well, no, I think wouldn't the Bengals be more expensive?
Well, yes. I'm not saying they're the most expensive. Okay. Of course, the Bengals. Yeah, are you kidding? Where's
Philly.
Chase Brown?
Well, right now, probably around what?
Chase
15?
Brown's RB 13.
Yeah, but we all know a lot can change, if they draft someone.
Well, okay, Philly, we can't count them. That doesn't count.
Oh, so did you just get
I never said that they were the most expensive. I said it's interesting, but they have been. I should say that shouldn't be a shock because Cooper Kupp was being pushed up last season, and I was one of those people where I said I'd rather take him. Nakua was also pushed up, but there was that time where was it a Nakua injury where they kind of flip flopped, where people said Cooper Kupp is going to finish ahead of Puka Nakua, me being one of them. Just with the injuries and stuff like that. So I guess they've always kind of been, these last couple of years, they've been expensive.
Yeah, which is why, again, it's a great fantasy offense because they have a running back that they're going to feed most of the touches to, and then 2 receivers that are going to receive high target shares. So it's ideal. They don't give us headaches. There's teams on a given week where it's like 10 guys catching a pass, getting targets. Like, really, guys? Come on. Don't do that to us.
You want to talk about the Packers one more time?
There you go. Perfect example. That's a good segue.
Look at that.
That's mid-season form. No training camp.
The Packers, here's the quote from their GM. We already have a roster we can win with. We won't draft for need.
Good to say that. Now we'll see. They said if we
had to go play next week, I feel good about our roster. And we're obviously looking at the offensive side, so take it with a grain of salt. But please, add a wide receiver.
They have several good receivers, but no one that's outstanding. And we've talked about this for so many years with Green Bay needing to take a receiver in the draft, and I think they need one.
You think, they need a receiver because Christian Watson, it's unfortunate, but his injury, again, it's not going to, we've talked about this. He's not going to come back in a timely manner where you're going to draft him in fantasy football. It's probably going to be November, December, if he ever does come back. Dontavian Wicks was kind of a disappointment last season as well, where there was a ton of hype when we look at him, but among these there's 89 wide receivers, 50 plus targets in 2024. He was 62nd in yards per route run, 85th in yards per target, 76 in yards per reception, and it wasn't good. It just wasn't good. And so, they need to add a receiver there because Josh Jacobs already said it. He said, they need guys that's proven to be a number 1 wide receiver already, and that's what they should target. They should try that at least to get some help for Jordan Love.
Yeah, and it would also help a guy like Jaden Reed too. You can't ask him to be the one. And he was basically the highest drafted receiver in fantasy last year for Green Bay. And he was a massive disappointment. I mean, he had 55 receptions on the season. So they just spread the ball around too much. Well, they also ran the ball so much. And we talked about it. And we talked about it yesterday where Jordan Love said he wasn't 100%. He came back from the injury a little bit too early, had a few injuries because it did look bad with his knee in that week 1 game in Brazil. And it looked like he might not play for the year. He did come back, didn't miss much time, but that's what happens when you rush back from injury. You come back, you're not 100%, and it made Green Bay rely on the run a lot more.
Again, I'll say this stat over and over and again until they get another wide receiver. 2024, no group of wide receivers had more total drops than the Packers, and their drop rate at 8.4% also led the league. So just get him some help. Understand Tucker, for what it's worth, though, to say something nice, Tucker Kraft was a good surprise. Pleasant surprise for the Packers last season. 30 when you look at among 31 tight ends with 50 plus targets, 2024 yards per route run, number 9, yards per target, number 2, yards per reception, number 2, yards after the catch per reception, number 1. So really, it was the yards. Yeah, it was everything kind of after the catch here for Kraft that helped him out, but he was good.
Yeah, also had a touchdown reception on every 7 catches, which we know unlikely to repeat. So just beware of that. But yeah, they just spread the ball around too much, and that's just not good for fantasy because you can't really count on any of those guys in a given week. It was like every week ranking those receivers, you had to put them outside top 30, top 35.
Yep, exactly. So we'll see what they do in the NFL draft. It does not, obviously, it's probably not going to be draft a wide receiver in the first round, but we can hope and we can dream here for fantasy football. That was the Fantasy Life Water Cooler. Again, make sure you head to fantasylife.com. Use that discount code EARLY25, EARLY25, to get 25% off your first year of any Fantasy Life Plus package. EARLY25 for that discount code that runs through April 27th. So make sure you get it done before then. We're going to continue on here. We're actually talking with Zac Jackson over there, staff writer for The Athletic, covering the Cleveland Browns. And we've got a ton of questions that we're going to ask him. We're going to do that here coming up next. Okay, fantasy football fans, sure, NFL season may be long over, but next season's action is already well underway. We're talking big trades, new signings, draft order shuffles, you name it, and all this preseason NFL action is easier to enjoy with the official beer of the NFL. So get Bud Light delivered today and enjoy every season projection, every player trade, every coaching change and draft pick with the clean, crisp taste of Bud Light, the official beer of the NFL. Stock up now for the offseason and enjoy. Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us right here. Fantasy Life on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. So excited because we've got Zac Jackson joining us right now, staff writer for The Athletic, covering the Cleveland Browns. Zac, welcome in. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, longtime listener, first time caller. Glad to be here.
I love it. You've got nothing going on this week or for the past couple years. Everything's just been great and dandy. In Cleveland, I'm assuming everything's fine.
Well, let me say, I've had nothing going on this week for the past 3 years because they haven't had a first round pick, right? So maybe not nothing, but certainly not this. It's not a stress level. It better be a stress level inside that building, right? It's not for us. There's a little bit of mystery, I think. There is a little bit of drama, as there always is with this franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And, there is a way that from a fantasy standpoint, they're going to change their whole landscape, in the days directly ahead. So, it's exciting. And if Travis Hunter is the pick and the hit that they think that he is, then, they get about their way. And then whoever they take at quarterback, we'll find out.
Travis Hunter, then I'll start there with you of how, because the big question for us in fantasy is really how they would use him. Could he be a true 50-50 split? What would you look at for him, wide receiver, cornerback? Like, where would you see them really taking him?
So I have a fair level of confidence that he is the pick. And I have a fair level of confidence that he will primarily be a wide receiver in 2025. So there is unknown, probably internally and externally, in terms of exactly how they bring him along. Meetings, installation, depth chart, all of those things, right? But he's going to, assuming he's a Cleveland Brown, he is going to be in line for a number of touches. the most touches on the team? I don't know. Are a lot of them going to be 2-yard bubble screens from Kenny Pickett or Joe Flacco? Probably. But I think that this team has been fairly clear. And I think when you look at the shape of this team, it's fairly obvious that he is going to be a guy that's involved in the offensive plans, for a number of touches in every game, I would assume.
There have been some reports that they could be taking calls for that number 2 pick. We know there's a lot of smoke screens leading up to the draft. Do you think there's any chance, though, that they do make a trade and let go of that second overall pick?
I think it's a slim chance, Adam. I think they should be interested in that given the state of the organization. And, I would not have anticipated that they were going to take Travis Hunter at number 2. And that's no diss on Travis Hunter, who I've enjoyed the heck out of watching and think that I'll enjoy the heck out of watching for the next X amount of years. I didn't think they were in position to take a wide receiver at number 2. If he is the pick, then they view him as so much more. So I could see them trading down and landing on a left tackle, a defensive tackle, or a quarterback. But it's hard to make a match there, and it's hard to think, say, San Francisco, even if they wanted to come up and give up and get Abdul Carter, it's hard for me to see them giving up the capital, which would be probably next year's first rounder and this year's second rounder, is kind of a starting point.
Talking again with Zac Jackson here, staff writer for The Athletic for the Cleveland Browns. Zac, I got to know then, because there's also been these rumors, what quarterback would they go and get? If they take Travis Hunter with their second overall pick, could you see them trading back into the first round if Shedeur Sanders really is going to fall that far? Or do you think it's going to be more of a Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe? I'll throw in Tyler Shuck because I guess he's now a first round pick, but either of those 3 guys?
Yeah, so in my article that's probably on the site right now, I don't know, I turned it in Tuesday evening. I believe with like a 70% level of confidence that Milroe or Dart will be the pick. And I believe that because I just think it's a blank slate. Like, look, Joe Flacco is going to be beloved in Cleveland for the December 2023 run. He's 40 years old. He's not a starting quarterback anymore. Kenny Pickett, we've seen try to be a starting quarterback. He's not a starting quarterback, right? But I think they're going to approach it as blank slate. Might they trade up for Shedeur, or might they not have to trade up for Shedeur? We're wondering. But I think they look at Jalen Milroe as the lottery ticket, as the guy who I hate to even make the comparison to Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson. He does share some traits. Those teams brought those guys up right. Those teams obviously shaped their offenses and their rosters around him, right? And around those guys, and it paid off. I think whoever the quarterback for the Browns is a very valuable fantasy asset at the end of the 2025 season, because I just can't see a spot where they get to past the bye week to trade deadline, whatever it is. We don't see the schedule for 3 more weeks, right? And they don't go to that rookie. Like, I just don't see who that would be. And maybe Milroe's a little bit ready. Maybe he's more ready than his bowl game and a couple late season games indicated. But, man, he's going to run that ball. And that's what's drawing teams to him. So I'm not saying he's the pick, but I feel like it's going to be one of those 2 guys. And I don't feel like they're going to trade back in, or at least I lean against it for one reason. They cannot trade far enough to where they'd have to give up next year's first round pick. That pick is just too valuable. I mean, I think 32 teams in the league would love to have the Browns first round pick next year, but nobody needs it more than the Browns do.
How about the backfield? Do you see them drafting a running back this year?
Absolutely. They almost have to, but then you get into the discussion, Adam, of, versus their other needs, and how do they really rank realistic options at that left tackle for the future, at defensive tackle for right now, or defensive end for right now, if it's Abdul Carter. So yeah, I think it's going to be mid-round running back, and I think that player is going to be given a chance to start. Jerome Ford is in the final year of his rookie contract. He's a good player, and he's an explosive player from a fantasy standpoint, but we've seen that he's not the same player when he's asked to be the number 1 running back. I don't know what's going to happen with Nick Chubb. I don't think Nick Chubb is in the plans, but I think that was always going to be a post-draft revisit type of discussion. So I think the Browns are going to draft a running back in the middle rounds, and that player certainly is going to be given the opportunities to, get his amount of touches and either take over or certainly share the dominant backfield role as the season goes on.
Zach, you're just like speaking our language right now. You got
I told you guys I listened. I wasn't lying.
Like Travis Hunter, full-time wide receiver. You're like new quarterback, but he could also, be someone you target in fantasy. Like you're sounding the alarms for everything that we want to hear right now. Before we let you go, I do want to kind of know on the updates of just Deshaun Watson, because you've seen him say that, whatever, everyone's doubting me, I'm going to come back better. But for the Cleveland Browns, I know there's a lot of legal stuff. There's a lot of money involved, but he's played his final play for the Cleveland Browns, right?
Yeah, it's not that everybody's doubting Deshaun Watson. It's that everybody who's watched him is doubting him. The injuries are unfortunate, right? I'm not trying to get personal with it, but he stunk. This was the all-time heist. This was an all-time bad trade, and this is why the Browns are where they are. So no, he's not in the plans, and no, he's likely not ever coming back. But every time you get ready for a Cleveland Browns season, you got to prepare for 3 or 4 quarterbacks, right? And he is on the roster, and he is going to be on the roster this year. Now, he's going to start on either PUP or NFI. I don't know the exact designation. And there is a chance that given the second Achilles tear that he won't be ready at all. But there's also a chance that he clears and is available. But I just don't think it's time to move on. And a year from now, in the offseason, they'll be deciding an actual exit strategy. But they owe him so much money, and they are sunk to the point, not only because he was so bad, but because they took so many other contracts and accelerated the money forward for last year when they won 3 games, and for this year ahead when they're probably going to win 4 or 5 games. So, yeah, there's no way he's in the plans. But if we talk around November and it's going a certain way, then maybe, probably not, but maybe.
But it has to be tough, Zach, for this team where you think you just have to rip it all apart, rebuild, but you're now rebuilding in a draft class that I should say with quarterbacks that are just, for all intents and purposes, they're not good. The quarterbacks aren't good in this draft class. So that has to be tough. Like, I know they put themselves in this situation, but trying to rebuild and say we're going to rebuild this year in a quarterback draft class that isn't good is just like mind blowing.
Yeah, and I could go on for an hour about how difficult the rebuild is and all the layers to it, of which you laid them out there, right? But the thing is, these guys are in at least somewhat self-preservation mode, right? The guys in charge. And then you have a roster that most of the best players are 28, 30 above and, on big contracts for only 1 or 2 more years. There's just not a pipeline of young talent. And a big reason for that is they gave up 3 first-round picks as part of this disastrous trade. So it's just an awkward spot. It's an awkward intersection, as I've been saying. And these are important draft picks over the next few days, regardless of what position they're at. But obviously quarterback is a big one. And there's a chance that they just take a total flyer at quarterback and start to revisit it again, late this season and obviously next offseason as well.
Wow. Incredible. Well, Zach, thank you so much for joining us here. Like I said, I already love it because now we've got all this fantasy football information for the Cleveland Browns for 2025. Have a great rest of the week. Good luck during the NFL draft, and hopefully we'll have you back on soon.
I don't do much best ball, but I take Jerome Ford because he's just going to get touches. Somebody's got to on this team.
There we go. You know what? Stop. We're going to put that on a quote graphic. We'll tag you in it afterwards. Thanks, Zach.
Right. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Make sure everyone goes to check him out at theathletic.com. We're going to be talking with Thor Nystrom here coming up next. So this is the best place to get all your NFL draft information. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you here, and Thor Nystrom joining us yet again, because you can't have the Thor 500 out at fantasylife.com and not come back on to talk about it. And I'm sure you've got your energy drinks. You're ready to go, Thor. How's it going?
I sure do, and I'm ready to go, ready to talk some draft. We're within 48 hours now, so excited to talk about it with you.
Amazing. It's amazing. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of Will Lightning Strike, and it is a play on your name, in case anyone didn't know here, talking about Thor Nystrom. And again, your Thor 500, have to remind people, is live at fantasylife.com, so make sure you go over there, and also use that code EARLY25, EARLY25, get 25% off your first year of any Fantasy Life Plus package with that promo code. So we'll lightning strike, Thor, on some of these later round guys. You heard the highlight coming into this show. So Tyler Shuck, Thor, maybe it's something I'm missing. I'm curious with you, like, really, is he going to be someone that we see as a first round draft pick this year?
If a general manager wants to get fired, that's not a guy that should go before day 3, in my opinion. Congrats on the 7th year breakout for Tyler Shuck. He stayed healthy last year, and in a statistically advantageous offensive system for the quarterback guru, Jeff Brom, he had a good season. He stayed healthy. I mean, outside of that, it took until the 7th year. You had 3 injuries prior to that consecutively in seasons at Texas Tech that wrecked your season. So you have durability concerns. At Oregon before that, the 3 years before, they benched him after a couple games for Anthony Brown to set him about his way. It's a guy who has struggled under pressure in the past, playing last year in, like I said, an advantageous offensive environment. You cannot take that guy in the top 100 picks. It would be egregious.
Well, lightning strike for Bashal Tootin. He's been real productive the last 3 years in college.
Yes, King Tootin.
King Tootin. I comp King Tootin to Isaiah Pacheco. I think they're the point in Spider-Man gifts. It's the ridiculous speed with like drivers that sometimes you wonder like where are they going? It's like the sort of the swerving and the out of control. There's like a kinetic style to both those guys. It's breakneck speed and breakneck styles. And sometimes, just like with Pacheco, you will sometimes see Tootin run into the back of an offensive lineman. But just like Pacheco, you also see him run into dingers, right? So you get the explosive plays out of Bashal Tootin. That's what he's going to bring to the NFL. I think he's a 4th-round pick. And there's a high ceiling there for sure. There's also some risk. His hands are a question. 5 fumbles last year, and Virginia Tech, they lessened his role in the passing game as well, which I wonder if that has to do with his hands. So those things elevate the risk profile, but a 4th-round prospect with upside for sure.
Feels like for Tootin as well, Thor, like just because we talk about this running back class, we say it's really deep, but there really are a lot of backfields in the NFL right now that could be shaken up depending on, which running back they go and get. So it could, it always depends on landing spot, but he could also be someone we're talking about, Sunday morning being like, hey, we're kind of all in because he landed at a great spot that gives him the opportunity.
1,000%. I mean, Isaiah Pacheco was a round 7 pick and was contributing early to a really good team. Tootin's going to go above that. He's for sure going to go above that. There's going to be a clear path to a role, and maybe a team will be drafting him in the moment with the idea that he is sort of a 1B committee guy, maybe more to a grinder kind of a dude, and then you use him as your explosive back. But it'll be interesting to see his landing spot and with these other guys. Well, I agree with your point, Kendall. The running back rooms around those 32 teams in the NFL are about to be reshuffled like a deck of cards.
Yeah, there's a lot that could go on there. Let's go over to another, I like to say it's a potential sleeper, but if you're texting with Thor Nystrom, you know about Isaac Tesla over there. So he's wide receiver 14 for you, 112 overall though. So do you think Lightning could strike with him depending on where he lands?
I have to let the audience behind is it 3rd wall or 4th wall?
I might be 4 now.
I forget. But we're in a text thread with producer Swing, and he and I, we basically every day just text about Isaac Tesla. He's been our boy since the Senior Bowl. Opened some eyes down there, made some plays down the field. 6'4" receiver, 215 pounds, and over a 90th percentile size adjusted athlete, doing all the gamut of tests during this process. And you see his ability to get down the field, get downtown. He's a big slot, but a big slot that can win at the 3rd level of the field, get off the line, the explosion down the field. And he can get up off the carpet. He is a jumper. He can jump out of the gym. I think the interesting thought experiment with him at the next level was he was not in an advantageous offensive environment his 2 years at Arkansas. After at the subdivision, he was a man amongst boys. The couple years before that, Hillsdale College or whatever. But at Arkansas, not an advantageous situation for him. And you didn't get to see as much with him in the intermediate range. But I kind of think that he could win there in the NFL. And if he shows that he can, you have a 3-level threat there. That guy is a sleeper. People are starting to wake up and catch on. You're seeing him gain steam as we get closer to the event. But I think that guy's going to go in round 4. And I think he's going to return value. He's in Daniel Jeremiah's top 100. I thought for sure I was going to be the highest guy on the media on him. And Daniel Jeremiah was like, hold my beer. So Tesla forever. We're going electric.
There we go.
Miami tight end Elijah Arroyo. He had that knee injury in his sophomore year, so we really only saw 1 season from him. So how do you evaluate that?
Of the top 6 consensus tight ends, he's the one that I am suspicious of. And by extension, ranked at the bottom of those top 6 tight ends. I think that he is overblown a bit. Injuries in part told the story of why early in his career it took a while, but nonetheless, it wasn't the breakout until the last season. And I think the thing that people forget with Arroyo is that with the statistical production that he had, that he was in this crazy good offensive passing environment with Cam Ward, where they put up bazooka stats, and he wasn't being targeted. He did hit some dingers. You know, he had the highest yards per reception at the tight end position in the FBS, but on not a ton of targets, not a ton of catches. And if that guy, if all he can do is, okay, you know, win jump balls, you know, okay, that's something that's going to be mitigated a bit in the NFL. And if you don't show that you can do the rest of the stuff, it's going to be easier to defend. And I also don't think he can play inline. I think he's a big slot. Those guys have a really high burden of proof. It's like Greg Dulcich was like the flavor of the, you know, the draft process a couple years ago. But he had to be a big slot. He couldn't be an inline guy. You have to pull a real slot receiver off the field to occupy that role. You got to be a pretty good receiver to do that. I've only seen one trick pony stuff with Arroyo so far. So that's a profile that I think is risky.
For the tight ends, Thor, you know, because again, running back class, we know it's a deep running back class. Wide receivers, not so much. Tight ends, have we kind of pulled back from when this process started, you know, for the past couple months? Are we kind of pulling back saying like maybe this isn't as deep of a tight end class? Or do you still think with the top guys, Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, then you add Arroyo, you know, Mason Taylor, Harold Fannin Jr., that it's still somewhat deep for these tight ends?
I think that this is a pretty good tight end class, you know, in relation to the ones we've seen last 5-6 years, because you have the crown jewel guy in Warren. You have another legitimate top 20 prospect in Loveland, who would have been the tight end one, you know, in most classes. And in the real NFL draft, I think there's value at that position, arguably through the end of day 3. But I would even say, or I'm sorry, end of day 2. But I would say the beginning of day 3. Because I think Fannin's going to go later on in round 3, and I think he's going to be a good NFL player. And then Thomas Fedone from Nebraska, I think is going to go right away in round 4, and that's a super interesting ball of clay. But the top 6 guys, I think you have a real path there to be in long-term contributors in the NFL, and that's going to get you more or less through day 2. So I think it's a pretty solid position group this year.
All right, Thor, appreciate you hopping on with us here. How many, by the way, over under, how many energy drinks are you drinking this week to get through it? What are we going to sit at? 50?
I'm gonna have to ask the Amazon guy. You know, he delivers the slats of Ghost energy drink almost daily. So I'm gonna have to get the count from him, but it's quite a bit.
Okay. All right. We'll keep doing that. We get to continue to talk with you this week here. Again, Thor's 500. The Thor 500 is live at fantasylife.com. So make sure you go and check it out. Thor, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Appreciate
you. I'll talk to you then.
All right. There he goes. We're getting into dynasty strategy right now. Who's worth, Adam, trading the 101 in dynasty rookie drafts this year? We're going to break it down next. Getting you ready for that NFL draft. You already know Fantasy Life right here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, but make sure you keep it locked right here. You've got the Jeff Ratcliffe Show coming up after us. So Jeff does a great job. So make sure you keep it locked. Get all the inside information that you need here. And again, more inside information though, Adam, just have to tell people one more time that we've got a promo code, a discount code for 25% off your first year of any Fantasy Life Plus package with promo code EARLY25, EARLY 25 over there. So we have got a lot of new things coming on that website for 2025 as well. We can't tell you everything, but just know it's going to be amazing. Great upgrades, great new tools that you're going to want to get into. So again, early 25 promo code to get 25% off your first year of any Fantasy Life Plus package. That goes through April 27th. So lock that in at fantasylife.com. All right, Adam, if you had the 101, I definitely don't. If you had the 101 in dynasty rookie drafts this year, would you be willing to give it up? Depending on the person, of course. So I could throw some names at you, but when you have an Ashton Genty on the board, who is probably just the 101 for most people, giving him up would be a lot.
It's really difficult to do. Now, obviously, it depends on your roster. What are your needs? Maybe you're really deep at running back and you need a receiver badly. I could see doing it. But again, we all believe that Genty's going to come into the NFL regardless of the landing spot and put up top-notch numbers. But it does make it intriguing because people love to trade. And I mean, look, when we're talking redraft, right, Genty's going to go in the first round by the time we come around real drafts in his rookie year. So you've got to get something significant back for him.
Wide receiver. Is Nico Collins even enough for you? If I throw out Nico Collins, would that be enough for the Texans? 2 seasons with CJ Stroud, he's averaging 7.7 targets per game, 5.5 receptions, 17.5 points per game. Is that enough?
I think it's fair. I mean, Nico's going to go late first, early second round. I've always been a fan of him. Been taking him almost every year. I don't think I had him last year, though. But we know that he's going to get a huge target share. He's 26 years old. So I think people probably want more. But I think that's a fair deal if you need the wide receiver.
A sexier name, but this would be Trey McBride, who just got paid by the Cardinals. We've been talking, saying, well, positive touchdown regression has to be coming, right? You can't finish the season like he did last year with only 2 touchdowns to show for it. He had 111 receptions, 1,146 yards, 2 touchdowns. That has to change. What about a Trey McBride for Ashingenti? Is that, or for the 101, I should say, but really for Ashingenti? What do you think there?
I don't think I could do that. I mean, you would have to be in real bad shape at the tight end position, but trading a top elite running back for a top tight end, it's really difficult to do. And I love McBride, took him in a lot of leagues last year. I do think the touchdowns should be there, although it's, only 5 touchdowns total the last 2 years. So there's a Kyler Murray problem potentially there.
Don't say it.
I don't think I could do that. Again, we all know the running backs are so important in fantasy. I mean, we've seen teams, you don't need the elite tight end to win. It makes it more challenging if you're trying to stream every week. But, you could have picked up a guy like Jonnu Smith off the waiver wire last year. Not in Dynasty, more so in redraft. But it's a fair deal if you are really hurting a tight end. But I would say no.
Okay, last one. Achane for the 101.
No. I like Achane.
I didn't think so.
He's dynamic, but I think you do have to worry about the longevity, the health, and even the Miami offense. This is not the same offense that we saw 2 years ago.
RB5 in PPR formats last season, by the way. That was
yes, because of the receptions.
Through him. Yeah,
the receptions.
ran
if
through him and
if they're going to use him like Alvin Kamara and he's going to get 80 receptions every year, then he'll be really good.
There we go. Again, everyone stick around. You've got the Jeff Ratcliffe Show coming up next. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us. FantasyLife.com. That's where you go. Use that promo code EARLY25 for 25% off. We'll see you tomorrow.